Hello friends and beautiful people. It is Kathryn Massell, 5D visionary, elevated consciousness coach. It is Sunday support. It's Sunday support. We're gonna wait a second here. Let's see who's gonna jump on. I'm kicking it. On Sunday, watching football. Hi, Meredith. Let's see who else is here. Let me know you're here. Say hello. Say, hey, what's up? Say, go Bills. Let me see if I can find. There I am. I'm live. Happy Sunday. Hello. Hey, Danielle. Couple announcements right off the bat. Tomorrow we begin our next 12 weeks of our live group program, my signature program, Timelines Expanded Masterclass. You can join this program and enjoy it anytime you like, but we are beginning live tomorrow. It looks like this will be the only time I'll be teaching this live this year because it does take up 3 months and I have other stuff going on this year. So if you want to get in for the live program, there's still time to do it. There are 2 payment options for you. You can break up your payments if you like. It is a 12-week program. Once you join, you're in for life. It is all things time and timelines, going deep down in the rabbit hole of time and timelines, how humans create time in 3D, because we are the keepers of this realm. How we can quantum jump time, merge time, opt out of false timelines, look at ancestral timeline healing, so much more. This is a real deep dive. It is an intensive masterclass, comprehensive material, and a little bit spiritually advanced. I'm not going to lie to you, but it is an incredible program. There's nothing else like it out there. That starts tomorrow. February 5th through the 7th, Global Acceleration of Ascension live virtual summit right in the Global Acceleration of Ascension group. You're already here, you're in it, so you're halfway there. All you got to do is show up. I'm going to have a little schedule change on our event calendar this evening, and then I will put that out again. We're swapping out one of our presenters. It happens. It happens. Luckily, we have so many people in this community have wonderful things to bring to our fellow community members. So I'm never hurting for a presenter, it seems. Then that's free. Promote this, bring a friend, invite a friend in. You always want to ask before you just invite people to this group. We want this to be an intentional space. As you know from the post that I wrote in our group today in the announcements, if you haven't read it, all members please read it. It's very clear what this group is about, what we're here for, and what we're not available for. This is an intentional community of people who are having a solution-based approach to ascension rather than a problem-based approach to ascension. That is a very integral part of this group. It will always be, because that is in integrity with unity consciousness. So please check yourself if that's not you. The other thing is Quantum Quintessence Society. I'm starting to fill up with members. It's $199 until February 9th. I'll be running this as a promotion through the summit as my offer for the summit. Those of you who are presenters, you're welcome to share an offer as part of the summit. You're also welcome to share a donation link if you have a cause that you're passionate about. And in lieu of signing up for a course, you want people to contribute in honor of your presentation to a specific cause, charity, etc. Please feel free to put that in the donation links post, which is in the files section of this group. Quantum Quintessence Society does start on March 11th. It is a 16-week group mastermind focusing on engagement with and practice in and tangible involvement with 4, 5, 6, and 7D dimensional realms. So that's out of the way. I'm walking in the woods in the snow. How beautiful. We finally got some snow here. And Danielle, I think you're still in Shasta. How beautiful. It's only hop, skip, and a jump away from where I am. So Today we're talking about something that's very timely. It's a very important subject to explore. Enlightenment and the suppression of knowledge. I have so many notes that I wrote down on this particular topic. I don't know if we'll get to them all, but I'll try to get to the real meat and potatoes of this and help impart to you the higher perspective. Yep, okay, beautiful. It's so gorgeous up there. This is an attempt to impart to you a higher level perspective on what's really going on, what's always been going on, and within that, where our power really lies and where it will always lie. And that at the end of the day, the universe is our ally and not our enemy. And in a timeline that already exists, the light has already won. We have already conquered this darkness. In my work with timelines, I've seen it, I've participated in it. That's why I'm so vehement in what I share and what I do, why I'm so passionate about my business. And it is, I would say, directly through my involvement in working with time and timelines, because I've seen this timeline. I've worked with merging this timeline into this false narrative or false timeline that we're in very often. So I can tell you some foundational things to understand before we start going into the deeper nitty-gritty of this. We have seen, sure, an upshot in, you can call it censorship, you can call it suppression of knowledge, you can call it omission of truth, you can call it misrepresenting or misguiding the truth, you can call it a misdirection of energies to keep us from looking for the truth. However you want to phrase it, this is not anything new. Yes, we're seeing this pop up quite a bit when we are looking at, things with the internet, the worldwide interwebs, platforms of information, social media platforms, etc. Sure, we're seeing censorship. Let's just call it what it is. Sure, we're seeing suppression of knowledge or misdirecting of knowledge, or a blatant omission of knowledge even, right? All these things are true. But there is a deeper truth that this is nothing new, and it has been going on, and is one of the oldest tricks in the book to keep knowledge from the people, especially higher spiritual knowledge that aligns people with their power and their sovereignty to make choices in their life that are the highest and best for them. That agenda is as old as humanity, okay? This is nothing new. What is new is that with the influx of technology that we have these days, it's in your face, it's more up close and personal than it ever has been before, okay? It is a bombardment. But just because it's kind of everywhere you look, maybe you could ask yourself, am I looking in the right places? Because let's face it, folks, the internet is not the end-all be-all of all information out there. There are still places on this planet, believe it or not, that are untouched by the internet. And yet, that part of the world still spins right along with the rest of this globe, okay? We give the internet and these platforms that are responsible for the suppression of knowledge the power that we give it. The reason they're powerful is because we give it that power, okay? It is only and ever our attention and our focus and energy that gives anything power, okay? Because without human engagement, any system, platform, structure is powerless. Without our participation and active engagement, these systems, structures, platforms, etc., are powerless. So one of the things that made me want to give this talk here today is seeing a lot of people in my community really up in arms about Wikipedia posting, or not posting, it's a free platform for editing, okay? And in their words, in their own words of their founder, co-founder of Wikipedia, and I'll read it to you. It was meant to be a people's platform, a free encyclopedia for sharing knowledge, free of proprietary constraints. That's the wording of the co-founder of Wikipedia. But what we've been finding recently is that certain things that have to do with alternative medicine, even alternative religious and spiritual practices, the editing was blocked, or the editing function was turned off, okay? Meaning it's not really a platform for the people. And their explanation on the Wikipedia site was that it was to keep it from being vandalized. May or may not be true, who knows? My point is, who cares? Who cares? Again, we are talking about an age-old tactic that's been used since the dawn of humanity to disenfranchise and disempower people. Because when people have true knowledge and they have access to higher spiritual truths, they tend to act from their sovereign God self-being, and they are no longer subject to any kind of manipulation, domination, or control, right? And yes, there is darkness. Yes, there are darker agendas that can only survive, and only their only means of surviving really is to make it their business to be in the business of domination, manipulation, and control, okay? But they only have that power to the degree that we participate in it ourselves. There are no victims here, folks. There are no victims here, okay? Let me give you some dates and some numbers. So some of those things that we saw in Wikipedia that were being, where the editing was blocked, the editing function was blocked, etc. Ayurveda, Reiki, what else? Acupuncture, traditional Chinese medicine, or TCM, okay? Let me throw some dates and numbers at you here. How old is the internet? Well, when they first started working on it, the first message was sent on the internet. It was 1969. But when we really started using it, it was 1983. That was the beginning of how we started to know or started to see the continuum of what the internet has become today. 1983. Hasn't been around that long, okay? I'm older than that, okay? Let's talk about another number. Facebook. Another platform that, yes, arguably, they have been shutting people down, suppressing knowledge, etc., etc., etc. How old is Facebook? 2004. 2004, Facebook has been around. Wikipedia. When did Wikipedia start? As the people's free online encyclopedia. 2001. Let me throw some other numbers at you. Ayurveda. A Chinese medicinal practice, but it's more holistic than that. Been around since about 3000 BC. Tai Chi. Another method, you call it shadow boxing. It's also called shadow boxing. Reputed to have a great deal of health benefits, okay? It's been around since 1670. Qigong, another method of movement, okay? Associated also with traditional Chinese medicine and a way of being, a holistic way of being. Qigong's been around since, well, it's about 4,000 years old. Traditional Chinese medicine. It's been around since the 3rd century BC. Again, the internet, as we know it today, has only been around since 1983. Facebook has been around since 2004. Wikipedia, 2001. What do you think I'm telling you here? These platforms are a flash in the pan, okay? They're a flash in the pan. And when we kind of look at that in a real tangible way of looking at those dates and compare them to each other about how long these traditional practices, holistic ways of being have been around, and we put that up against a platform that is either outright denying the power of these very powerful holistic ways of being, we can kind of get a sense of, seems like a really temporary thing. And that's the point. That's the point. Anything that isn't aligned with our journey of spiritual advancement, because that is, in essence, I talk about timelines a lot. We have a true organic ascension timeline. That means that we are in a timeline, or we can mass tip a point of consciousness to anchoring back into the timeline, because it already exists. It just happens to be parallel to the false timeline that we're in, which is temporary also. This true organic ascension timeline, it is aligned with our constant up-leveling through our spiritual process of awakening. Anything that is aligned with our spiritual advancement, an ever-evolving process of awakening and moving back towards our light being status, that is a true organic ascension timeline, is a real, true timeline, not a false timeline. And any other timelines or any other structures, platforms, ways of being that don't support our spiritual advancement towards ascension is false. It is temporary. It is just a snapshot in the infinite, because it is illusory based. And I know that we want to shake our fists when we see censorship happening. And I know that we want to be all up in arms and call these people out for negating or trying to create the illusion of negating something that has direct benefits for you aligning back into your infinite self. It's temporary. It's not real. And by its nature, it's illusory and impermanent. Okay? The suppression of knowledge has been happening since we've had mystery schools. There are mystery schools, a lot of them have fallen out of integrity, but there are some, like ISIS mystery schools, have been around for a really, really long time. You're not going to find anything about them, not really, on the internet or Wikipedia, okay? You're not. Mystery schools have been around for thousands and thousands of years. Reiki, another example, has been around for hundreds of years. For a while, and when I first started out, actually, you couldn't find anything on the internet about Reiki. What do these things have in common? That real and true spiritual knowledge is passed on through people. Because we're the common denominator and the lasting information thread that goes on. Internet platforms come and go. Political leaders, leaders of knowledge, gurus, they come and go. What stays? People, humanity. The real shared knowledge that holds truth and holds the keys to higher spiritual truth is always going to be, always and ever, going to be shared between humans. Okay? Oral traditions that have passed on certain pagan rites, no matter how much Christianity and the church try to suppress that knowledge, it lived on, has lived on, is living on. You want to talk about suppression of knowledge? The Vatican archives. No one really knows what's in there. I mean, I don't think any of us watching here or being involved in this call have any idea what's really in the Vatican archives. Think about that. There may only be a handful of people who know what's in the Vatican archives. You want to talk about the suppression of knowledge? Maybe don't go after Wikipedia. If you're going to be up in arms and get distressed about something, maybe you want to look at the Catholic Church. Yet, somehow the Gnostic Gospels were found. Somehow we found out about the true nature of Mary Magdalene. Somehow we found out about more of Jesus's true teachings, not how they got aborted and distorted in different translations of the Bible, depending on who was, the history leader at the time. Okay? So I'm trying to give you some perspective on this. I'm trying to fan out your level of perspective so that you can see that this has always been going on. This is nothing new. The only thing that's different now is that we have technology that moves faster than we can use it or process it, or our reptilian brains have an ability to keep up with it, really. And so there are a lot of platforms vying for your attention. And it is because of this reptilian part of you that still holds a lot of animal instinctual behavior that allows you to go into fear a lot more easily than it allows you to go into surrender and trust and love. These platforms, they're counting on you to be in that state of mind and that level of feeling where you're just scratching the surface of surviving. They're counting on you being in that state of being. Why? Because you're very easy to manipulate, dominate, and control in that state. Suppression of knowledge is nothing new. The biggest container that we're all in right now, that is a giant container of the suppression of knowledge, is the false timeline that we are residing in. We're vacillating now more and more between merging into a true organic ascension timeline. But we're not there yet, folks, because we keep participating in and turning our attention and focus into funding the exact same things that are keeping us away from our true organic ascension timeline. Remember what I said just a few moments ago. Anything that is not aligned with our spiritual advancement of awakening is false. It is illusory and is impermanent. We are always and ever the wholeness of our consciousness and all the different places that it resides, and there are many. So we're choosing to participate in a very microscopic focus of attention that is keeping us in a place of survival, thinking that we're the victims, that someone over there holds all the puppet strings and all the power. But that's just you not understanding that they don't have any power if you don't pay attention to it. And I know that sounds trite and simplistic, but it really is true. And this has proven itself to me over and over and over and over and over again. There are certain things I am not available for anymore. Turning my attention and focus and funding a level of contrast that I've already played with a million times, and I know exactly how that contrast turns out every single time when I play with it. There's nothing else for me to learn there. That is a barren wasteland and landscape that I have no business putting my attention and energy into anymore. And I see this as just another one of those things. And yes, we can absolutely get upset about this. And, who am I to say what your crusade of truth is? Maybe your crusade of truth is unmasking all of these people, and that's fine. But that's always going to ever lead you to greater levels of expansion and spiritual awakening if you continue on that path, because it doesn't stop there. Unmasking, the villains is only a small part of the process. And that doesn't even, at the end of the day, really solve anything. Because it's like playing a giant game of spiritual whack-a-mole. It's like you unmask that villain, you whack that mole down, another one just pops up. That's the nature of the beast, folks. Because that's the nature of duality and this play with light and shadow that we agreed to when we came here to 3D. So how do you rise above it? You realize that the true power doesn't lie in this flash in the pan, which is the internet, this flash in the pan, which is Facebook, this flash in the pan, which is Twitter or Wikipedia or any other, online encyclopedia or platform that shares knowledge free of proprietary constraints. These things are blips. They are weapons of mass distraction, meant to take you away from what? Your experience and your journey through a process of spiritual awakening. That's all they are. It's like, when you really start to think of it that way, it's just like, get this fly off of me. It takes some work to get there. I'm not going to say it doesn't. But when you get to that place, it's very liberating. Because you look at stuff like this and you're like, nice try. Okay? The one thing that continues on when all of these tools and all of these things, you know, Facebook is a great tool. Here we are, right? We get to share in, you know, intellectual, I hope, discourse with each other. We get to share our feelings. We get to share an experience. We get to create intentional communities. But Facebook, like any other tool, is only useful for us if we need it, if it yields something for us that gives us meaning in our lives. A tool is only as good as its ability to, you know, help you where you stop, where the body stops, your mind stops, and something else needs to pick up to help you or give you, you know, some sort of assistance. Okay? When it stops being of assistance to you, you stop paying attention to it. Think about any tool that you have in your house. Okay? Because that's all Facebook or Twitter or Wikipedia or the internet. That's all they are. They're just tools. When something breaks, it outlives its usefulness to you. Yes? And where does it go? In the junk drawer. It goes in the junk drawer, right? And what happens when you put stuff in the junk drawer? I can tell you what happens in my house when I put stuff in the junk drawer. I stop paying attention to it until I have to move, and then I have to go through the junk drawer and be like, God, this old thing, I thought I threw this away. I haven't used it, and da-da-da. Okay, I'm having a lot of nice try experiences for sure. Good. It's very liberating, isn't it? Because you're not giving it your power. You're not paying attention to it. In fact, by laughing at it or being sarcastic with it, like, nice try, that's a good one, you are completely taking any power away from it. And at this point, I do look at these things and I laugh. Because I know something very, very profound. And this is through the work that I've done over years and years and years. And I'm going to tell you a little bit of a story about this to back this up. But I want to tell you something that's very, very powerful. And that is that, you know, anyone who is looking for spiritual knowledge, like really looking for spiritual knowledge because they define themselves as a seeker. And usually that comes about because something's rotten in the state of Denmark. You're like, that can't be right. I know that's not right. And I know in my body is telling me that I'm hearing this, I'm reading this, I'm seeing it, I'm even seeing other people get on board with this, but I'm like, come on. Either that's not the whole story, or it's a complete negation of the story, or it's a misrepresentation of the story, but you just know. And you got to give yourself credit for this at this point, for having this gut instinct that is telling you when something is off, because it usually is. You have to trust and surrender to that, okay? Instead of trying to talk yourself out of it, because then when you start intellectualizing it, you'll probably talk yourself back into it. You got to go with those feelings, okay? You're just as intuitive as you are intellectual or rational, okay? So the true seekers of knowledge, like they know. They know when there's like, there's more to know here. Or there's more to the story here. Or there's some other nuance that, you know, it doesn't get talked about. And I maybe had visions of it or feelings about it, but I don't have like a full explanation for it. But you just know. Who's been in that situation? Probably more now than you ever have been, right? This is definitely true for me. And so the true seekers of that level of knowledge, they know deep down when something isn't right. They know that those who are really seeking enlightenment, like really seeking it at a level of integrity and honesty within them, that they know that not only am I going to find this nugget of information, but I'm going to be forever changed by it. And aren't we? Like when we find things, like I know when I found Reiki, and I'm going to tell you a story about that in a second, I was forever changed by it. It took me on a path of spiritual awakening that is still evolving, it is ever evolving, and it won't stop. Because it's aligned with who I am as my spiritual God self. So how could that ever stop? And I don't want it to stop. Okay? I always felt that way about religion. It's a great example. Organized religion. There's a lot to be desired there. Okay? But the real seekers of enlightenment, they're the ones, they know that there's something, and they know that there is something in that, and what they find, that they're destined to be forever changed by it. And then you get that feeling like, I can't stop until I find it. This has been a thread of those who seek enlightenment. This has been a common denominator and a common thread that unites all of us who are spiritually awakening and are destined as spiritually awakened beings who came to this 3D existence to help wake everybody up or be part of the light and to be of service in unity consciousness here on the planet. That is the common thread. That they sought enlightenment, they wouldn't be satisfied until they found it, and they knew they'd be forever changed by it. And they would know because they would feel it. It would be a deep feeling and a deep knowing, something you can't explain, something that defies rational analysis or explanation even. It is a felt sense. Remember, I'm always saying we don't feel our way into higher dimension, or we don't think our way into higher dimensional awareness. We feel our way into higher dimensional awareness. And so the higher universal intelligence that directs these souls who are seeking enlightenment, they will never let you down. This higher universal intelligence team, it always guides you as a soul on a quest of spiritual enlightenment, spiritual awakening. It will guide you towards the right people, the right information, the right levels of wisdom that you're asking for. It may not show up in the way that you think that it does, and I'm going to give you a great example. But this has been always and ever the way. Whatever is meant for that soul's progression, seeking enlightenment, you'll find it through the journey of spiritual awakening. And you have to trust that. You're not going to find it on Wikipedia. You may find, nuggets of truth on Facebook. Hopefully you find some nuggets of truth and wisdom through me, because I strive to be in integrity, even using this tool, which is the source of not the greatest integrity sometimes. But I like to uplift everything that I touch. Facebook is no different. I like to uplift the cashier in the grocery store. I like to uplift the person who delivers my mail. I leave little notes in my mailbox for my mailman, letting him know how much I appreciate him, because he's working till 6, 7 o'clock these days, and that's gotta suck if you have a family, you got kids. Our mailmen and women are delivering mail up here until 6, 7 o'clock now. How nice is it to leave a little note in your mailbox and be like, I know you're having a tough day, it's a long day, I really appreciate you, thank you. I strive to be a servant of unity consciousness. That means everything I touch, I will attempt to uplift. I will attempt to elevate. I don't want to call myself an elevated consciousness coach just because it sounds good. I mean it. I put my money where my mouth is, okay? So given that this higher universal intelligence will always guide souls to the right people, the desired information, the aligned wisdom that is meant for that soul's progression through their journey of spiritual awakening, given that, which is a higher spiritual truth, feel into that, know that, take it to heart, and then know this: no media platform, no container of information, no conveyance of information like online encyclopedias will ever have the longevity or the strength to outwit, hoodwink, or sway universal intelligence in its divine mission of guiding those souls who are really seeking enlightenment from a place of integrity to their higher spiritual truth that's meant for them. It has always and ever been this way. It will always and ever be this way. Take this to heart. Know this deep down. Are these tools great sometimes? Obviously. Here we are on Facebook. I put my videos up on YouTube, which has their own set of problems. Google has their own set of problems. Forever changed. That's how I feel about your Timelines Expanded course. Thank you so much, Dina. What a nice compliment that is. What is the one thing that continues? These flash in the pans Facebook, Twitter, media platforms, Wikipedia, the internet even. Yes, there was life before internet. In fact, most of my spiritual awakening took place before the internet. I mean, I didn't really start having access to the internet and using it until like 1992. I'm 49 years old. So when I was born in 1972, like, we had internet in our school, but there was one computer and we just like played a game on it. And I remember it was clunky and it was huge and whatever. And think of how much knowledge has been exchanged between humans, between people, because we're the common denominator in any exchange of information. It's always humans that are ultimately sharing information with each other. I don't care if you're using a platform to get it out to more people, it's always humans generating that knowledge. Some people would argue with me on that sometimes humans are manipulated to sharing a certain level of knowledge. Sure, okay. But at the end of the day, it's humans that are still the keepers of this realm of 3D. We have external influences that are not of integrity. That is definitely true. But ultimately, humans are responsible for our destiny here in 3D. We are the keepers of this realm. The one thing that continues on when these tools, these containers, these means of conveyance of information, when that gets shut down, when that gets censored, that gets suppressed, what's left at the end of the day is humanity. And we've been exchanging levels of spiritual knowledge with each other since the inception of humanity. And this will continue to be so, regardless of the internet or any other platforms within it. If it is the goal to dominate and manipulate people's ideas, beliefs, attitudes, and opinions, and you already know this is a goal because of what we're talking about here, and you're seeing it, you're experiencing censorship, you're experiencing suppression of knowledge, maybe you've been subject to it yourself, or you've had it happen to a friend, they had their account shut down, You know it's happening. You also know that in order to direct and manipulate the course or flow of knowledge, it is through mechanisms like the internet and the myriad of conveyances or platforms on the internet. What do you think would happen if we stopped paying attention to those platforms? So think about, let's take Wikipedia. This is a great example. So if someone is really, I'm talking about the true seekers of knowledge here, okay? The true seeker of enlightenment, the true seeker of knowledge that is not satisfied until they find that nugget of knowledge they're looking for, and they know it because they're going to be forever changed by it and they're going to feel it, okay? So I'm talking about the true seekers of enlightenment, the true seekers of higher spiritual truth and knowledge here. If they go looking for something, and let's just say they go to Wikipedia. I don't know why you would, but whatever, you know. Let's say they go to Wikipedia and try to find something about Reiki. If there's nothing on there about Reiki except that it's quackery or that it's, you know, pseudoscience, I think was the other thing that they were using to describe a lot of things on there. Do you think that real true seeker of enlightenment is going to be satisfied with that answer? No. They're going to go looking somewhere else. If they have it be that Wikipedia is their last stop and the buck stops at Wikipedia, that's not a true seeker of knowledge. I'm sorry, it's just not. Because they're not going to be satisfied or take no for an answer or be satisfied with, but I don't feel that that's pseudoscience. I don't think it's quackery. Like, I've talked to people who have had amazing revelatory experiences with Reiki and healing or profound emotional shifts, etc., blah, 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 blah. They're not going to stop there. So take a thing like Wikipedia that we've already established is a blip, is a flash in the pan, doesn't have the longevity or long-term endurance put up to something in contrast like Ayurveda or Reiki or Tai Chi or Qigong or traditional Chinese medicine. That person is going to look elsewhere. And if you have a bunch of persons then looking elsewhere, that tool of Wikipedia stops being useful. And what happens when things stop being useful? It goes in the junk drawer. People stop paying attention to it. It goes away because it's impermanent. And that is the nature of all things that are impermanent. They go away. And I know that we all have our battles. I know that we all have our crusades of truth. You know, we all have the things that we want to fight for, the things that we want to stand up for. I get that. But you want to ask yourself, and again, I'm trying to give you the higher, span out your attention here and give you the higher perspective on this. You can be a crusade of truth warrior for unmasking the villains behind the censorship and suppression of knowledge, etc. I will tell you from experience, it takes you down a deep rabbit hole that is never ending. And you got to ask yourself, is it worth it to expend that much energy, time, attention, focus, chasing a shadow and an illusion of something that is impermanent to begin with? Or do you take the unity consciousness perspective and take to heart what I said, that at the end of the day, when all these platforms are done, everything, you know, rolls up and dies, what's left is humans, humanity. And we go back to what we've always done and what we've always been good at, is sharing legacies of information with each other through oral traditions. You know, not a lot of stuff is written down and hasn't been traditionally. That's a pretty recent development, really. Okay? We all have to figure out our own battlegrounds. We all have to figure out our own crusade of truth. But a crusade of truth that is in alignment with unity consciousness is for us to be the conveyances of knowledge as humans, as people. To be conveyances of knowledge in integrity, meaning what we share should be in integrity, in authenticity, shared from a place of genuine honesty and truth. And anything that's in alignment with that is going to be in alignment with unity consciousness. And with the principles of, I'm here to be in service to others, not in service to self. And service to others means being in the highest integrity and authenticity that you can possibly be in, and understanding that my truth may not be your truth, but there's a higher spiritual truth that is a hierarchy above that. And that's always going to be aligned with wanting the highest and best for all. And as much as you can in your life, as much as is in your power to do, to be a facilitator of that. And when we share information with each other, legacies of information with each other about ways of being that are going to bring betterment for all, if we keep that up, it doesn't matter how many platforms or social media outlets or conveyances are out there spinning a different yarn. It won't matter. I'm forever seeking answers everywhere. I'm learning to trust my intuition for the answers. And this is a call to discernment, because that really is the duality of being in this plane of existence, is understanding that yes, there's judgment, but there is discernment. And when we are in alignment with the higher principles of unity consciousness, we practice good discernment. That means we trust our intuitive hits. Sure, we're beings that have the gift of rational analysis, right? We have the gift, not all of us, to be critical thinkers. And that is a gift. But it is not the end-all, be-all, the sum total of how we make choices or decisions that are in integrity with unity consciousness, right? So this is how we reclaim our true organic ascension timeline that I was talking about. And we begin to fully opt out of false timelines for good, because the biggest conveyance of false information that we're all in right now is we're in one big giant false timeline. We're slowly eking our way out of it, because there are more and more of us creating a tipping point of mass consciousness where we're starting to realize that what really matters is love, what really matters is unity and being unified, and working towards a goal of, or working with a desire of, being more spiritually aligned to our divine God selves. And we won't be fully out of this false timeline until we have tipped the point of mass consciousness out of it and into the ascension timeline that is totally organic and true to our divine ascension. So do you guys have questions about this? Does this make sense? Is this helping you? Is this helping you to, maybe there are some of you who have been shaking your fists in the air and have been angry and felt like, I need to be a vanguard of truth. And I need to chase these people down with pitchforks and torches and unmask these villains. Everyone's got their own battleground. Everyone has their own crusade of truth, okay? And I get that. But I can tell you from experience that if your crusade of truth that is in and of itself to just chase down the villains and unmask them, you will find yourself going down a rabbit hole that almost drives you mad and may even drive you mad. Where is our energy, attention, and focus better served? Those of you who acknowledge yourself as a seeker, and those of you who wish to, in your service to others consciousness, your unity consciousness, wish to help other seekers along on their path, then it should be pretty obvious what your job is. To step up and be the light. That in your light of sharing knowledge freely and in honesty and in integrity, with helping people in a service to others mindset and a unity consciousness mindset, helping others to elevate or rise past their station where they may feel stuck or stagnated or looking for a piece of information that they can't find on the worldwide interwebs because it's being shut down or censored or suppressed, etc. You have to be the light. You have to step up and shine that light even brighter. And know that when you do, you have gained allegiance with the higher universal intelligence. And it will help you to do that. It provides the right people to help you bolster your confidence and your self-esteem to feel like you can be the light, or that big of a light. It will align you with the right people. It will align you with the right resources and circumstances, the right aligned wisdom that helps you to keep growing and working the steps of ascending your own consciousness so you can help others, right? It will give you the opportunities to explore shadow so you can opt out of the darkness that maybe your life has been defined by for a long time. That help will always show up when you are in integrity with those principles of unity consciousness and you decide you're going to be the light. You're going to help the other fellow seekers and questers link up with your compatriots in the quest for knowledge and truth and share and disseminate information to each other with honesty, authenticity, integrity, and love. And this idea might scare some of you. I get that. Some of this, may feel like this is too big for me, or I'm not big enough yet, or I don't know enough yet. All of that is horseshit that you are shoveling. I'm sorry, not sorry. You think of them maybe as reasons, but they're really excuses. Because you either want to be in alignment with source and unity consciousness, or you don't. That middle path is dissolving, of where we're kind of like, oh, 1 foot in, 1 foot out. I'm kind of in unity consciousness. I'm kind of in alignment with source. That's an illusion that you are perpetuating for yourself. You're either in alignment with source and service to others in unity consciousness, or you aren't. And if you're on this call, I will bet good money that you are feeling the call to unity consciousness more than ever. The reason why you may be up in arms about the suppression of knowledge is because you know in your heart of hearts there is so much knowledge out there. And we are coming out of a massive period of suppression of knowledge where there is a lot more disclosure now than there has ever been. And part of this disclosure is seeing the dark agendas for exactly what they are, but not necessarily unmasking the villains, because that's a chase of phantoms. It's shadows and dust. because these are illusory and artificial mechanisms that are impermanent. They are illusory, and so they're always fleeting. It's like chasing a phantom. So here we are exploring duality. That's the dark side of all of this, trying to expose and unmask the villains and raise our fists in the air and be on a crusade of truth and on the battleground for free knowledge for the people. Or you can be that source of knowledge. And I want to give you an example. So I definitely identify as being a seeker. I definitely identify as always being a seeker. Ever since I was a little kid. And when I was a little kid, I knew things about myself that I was not ready to tell other people. I knew things, I felt things very strongly, and I could often hear things that people were thinking, which is weird because my hearing is not that good, but my clairaudience is very good. So when I was a little kid and I knew these things, I knew that there was something going on that maybe was going on with me that wasn't going on with a lot of other people. And I was born in 1972. And so when I was 7, 8 years old, I had a lot of experiences that I couldn't explain. And as far as I knew, there was no one in my family, immediate family, or extended family members that I could talk to. Because I was a watcher. I was a quiet child, especially because of things were going on. I didn't feel normal. I felt weird. I felt like a freak. So I watched and I observed a lot, and I would observe other people's behavior, and I would see how people would talk, and I could tell, or sometimes hear on a clairaudient level, if something was going on also with people like it was going on with me. And I didn't find too many of those people. In fact, almost none. But I had a lot of questions. And you know, you go to the library at the corner of your street, there's not a whole lot of information about clairaudience or clairsentience, books on psychic phenomena, UFOs, globs or forms that you see that are plasmic. You know, all that stuff I was trying to find answers to, I couldn't find it, but it didn't stop me from seeking. And so I went on a massive quest throughout my teenage years, especially, like anything that even smacked of anything that was occult or beyond organized religion, spiritual, you know, and there were only a few places where I grew up in Buffalo, New York. There were only like a couple, there was one like occult bookstore, and I kind of lived there from the time I was like 17 to 22, no, 21. But I had no internet. There was no Wikipedia. There was no Facebook, okay? I couldn't Google stuff, but I kept seeking. And little bits of information would keep finding me. And then it really found me when I was studying to be an esthetician. This is what I mean when I say the knowledge doesn't always find you where you think it's going to find you. I was studying to be an esthetician. And my side note, go Bills, thank you. Go Packers too. I want the Packers to win. I think the game is over though. But I was in school to be an esthetician, and one of my teachers and mentors took me aside one day. I thought I was in trouble because she was this very stern Iranian lady. She was about 5'2", and she was built like a brick shit house, and she was stern. She was a taskmaster. She always wore black and put her hair back in a severe tight bun. And I respected her because she had an incredible amount of knowledge. But she took me aside one day and she said, just point blank, do you know anything about Reiki? And I didn't. I had heard about it, maybe read about it before a little bit, but I really knew nothing about it. And she proceeded to tell me very matter-of-factly, because that was her way, that she was going to teach me Reiki. Oh, thanks, Christine. I know you're happy. I'm not, though. Anyway, she told me very matter-of-factly that she was going to teach me Reiki and that I was going to be a Reiki master. She was going to teach me all 3 levels of Reiki and then the master level so that I could teach it to others. And there was no room for discussion in this. But she said also, I know you have a lot of questions. So maybe she was clairaudient too. I never asked her that. But she said, I know you have a lot of questions, and I know there are a lot of things that don't make sense for you. And once you learn this, a lot of things are going to start making a lot of sense to you. And you know what? She was right. On all accounts. I did study with her. Yes, I finished my esthetician degree, but that didn't go very far. I had my own office and practiced for a little while. But then the Reiki and the hypnotherapy took over because I was more passionate about that, and that was more aligned for me with my spiritual journey of awakening. And that was, in my mind, where my focus needed to be and where my focus wanted to be. I was passionate about that. I still am. So that knowledge that I was seeking, it found me. I happened to be in aesthetics school. It happened to be my aesthetics teacher, who I knew nothing about this part of her. I didn't know she was a Reiki master. I didn't know she was a spiritual person. She left no inclination of that in the way that she taught or our interactions or anything, our discussions, nothing. I never talked about that with her, but she brought me to that really, this pathway that ended up becoming so grandiose in my life and changed the entire trajectory of my life. And it brought me into an even deeper level of seeking more and greater spiritual knowledge to align me again back into me being in my God self divinity, which is what we're all doing. That's what the journey of spiritual awakening is all about. And none of this had anything to do with the internet. None of this had anything to do with Wikipedia. None of it had anything to do with Facebook. I wasn't online back then. All of this stuff is temporary, and by its very nature is impermanent and illusory. Why? Because it is not aligned with our journey of spiritual awakening in this lifetime. Anything else is a false timeline. Anything else is a false construct, and by its nature, impermanent and illusory. So that's why it feels like we're chasing phantoms when we go after this stuff. Because there's always, it's like a house of mirrors. There's always another corner to turn and another new development, another villain to unmask. Because that's the way those mechanisms of false ascension, the false ascension software works. So has this helped you guys? I hope. That's kind of everything I wanted to say about it. But I really hope this helps. And understand that, our mission to navigate this realm of duality is, and you'll always be safe in this respect. You'll always be supported and looked after and guided in this respect. Whatever happens, whatever you see, whatever external stimulation, external trigger, stressor, always ask yourself, is this aligned with unity consciousness? Even your reaction to it and what you might want to do, is that aligned with ego? No one's going to have control over me, right? What's the shiny, bright side of that coin? Flip it to that. Because you're going to find that that's the unity consciousness side of the coin, or side of duality. What would be most aligned with service to others or unity consciousness? What action or reaction or response is most aligned with love and elevating what I touch or do or say next? I call it the God choice. And I talk about this at length in Timelines Expanded, because it has a lot to do with our power to manipulate the time fields. And to manipulate the time fields in integrity, we must always be asking ourselves, what is aligned with the God choice here? What is aligned with the highest and best good for me, the highest and best good for all, and with the least amount of resistance for all involved? And that resistance part is key. Because if we feel like we have to constantly go after and be on a battleground for everything, that's resistance. You're just in resistance. And you may feel like you're the champion of the light, But if you're going up against something that feels like resistance, and you're constantly going against resistance, going against resistance, going against resistance, that is not unity consciousness. You're here to be the light. You're here to anchor the light. And when more of us do that, we enshroud the darkness. We never fully eradicate the darkness. That's not our job here. That's not our mission here. You can't eradicate the darkness. We're here to remember our way back to our divinity so that we can live at a level where we've risen above it. So I hope this helps you guys. And I know that I'll keep looking at the darkness and going, nice try. Psst, psst. That's all you got? Nice try. Because that instantly takes the power away. That instantly deflates the situation at hand. And you got to ask, like, why do you have such a defiant nature or response to something? Is it because you feel that this structure, construct, whatever, has the ability to take power from you? No. You're making that conscious choice to give it the power, because these structures, they can't, remember what I said about a tool. If it outlives its usefulness, you forget about it, you stop paying attention to it. And that's exactly how these structures of impermanence dissolve. So don't give it any attention. And I know some of you are like, well, but what? But what? You're giving your attention to something that is a flash in the pan. You're chasing a phantom that is impermanent. And it's a never-ending battle when you start doing that. It feels like an ever-evolving and never-ending path, and it's exhausting. Because the reason why it's exhausting is because you're in ego. And when you're in ego and you're fighting something because you're like, no one's going to tell me what to do, da-da-da-da-da, and this thing should be here. If you're should, woulda, coulding anything, you're in ego. And when you're in that place, you're working with a finite source grid of energy. When you're in unity consciousness, and you flip into the bright, shiny side of that coin, and you're in unity consciousness, you are working with an infinite source grid of energy. That's why it feels so good when you're aligned with unity consciousness, and it feels like you got energy for days. And you keep elevating your energy because you become a vacuum for more of that good energy, and you just it keeps flowing through you, and then you expand it in you, and then you expand more out, and it's this constant give and take. When you're in a finite source energy grid, that's why you're exhausted. That's why you're depleted. That's why you're depressed. Because you're working with the ego level personality. You're letting the darkness have too much sway over your choices, your decisions. You keep partnering with it, or, playing with the contrast of it. It's exhausting. Okay? So this is where I'm really going to leave off. So lots of love to you guys. I hope this was helpful. You can feel free to ask questions if you need to, and I'll see them in the comments. Go Bills. And I love you all. Thanks for being here. Love and peace.